Welcome to the May 10th, 2021 Jamestown Rotary meeting. Please welcome Kathy Birch, who will lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance, followed by the four-way test.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible,
liberty and justice
for all. Okay, the four-way test. Of the things we think, say, or do, is it the truth?
Is it the truth?
Is it fair to all concerned?
Is it fair to all concerned?
Will it build goodwill and better friendships?
Will it build goodwill and better friendship?
Will it be beneficial to all concerned?
Will it be beneficial to all concerned?
Thank you, Kathy. Now Mary Schiller is going to lead us in the invocation.
Okay. Thank you, Lord, for the gift of Rotary and each other. Through our service to all, we thank you for all of our gifts. I'd also like to offer some words from Martin Luther King. The time is always right to do the right thing. Our lives begin to end the day we become silent about things that matter. Never, never be afraid to do what's right, especially if the well-being of a person or animal is at stake. Society's punishments are small compared to the wounds we inflict on our soul when we look the other way. Amen.
Amen. That's a good one. Welcome to visiting Rotarians and guests. We have our speaker, Dan Stone, City Parks Manager and City Arborist with us. Do we have any other visitors? I'm checking the list. Speak up if you're a visitor. I don't see any. Well, welcome, Dan. We're looking forward to hearing from you in a little bit. Okay, announcements. Sadly, I have to report the passing of Dudley Erickson's wife, Joni. She passed away early last week. And he's a 50-year member. So I bet he'll be coming back to us eventually. If anyone else wants to add anything, go right ahead.
Yeah, Vince here. I did go and visit Spud, and you know, it's one of those things where he's at peace. She had really struggled with Alzheimer's for years, and his whole family was there. And I mentioned to him that Rotary, I think we were talking about next few weeks or so, we'll probably get back together. And I said, I'm coming to pick you up, Spud. And he was excited about that. And so, you know, he reflects and leans and thanks his Rotarians for all their support as well.
Vince, remember, I'm going to say, Vince, remember, I'm right in Lakewood. So if you don't pick him up, I'm glad to. So just let me know.
Well, very good. About time you got out of Florida.
Randy, I'll mention Randy that Spud was asking if you were back from Florida. So when we saw him,
I stopped by on Saturday and got a chance to see him, and yeah, it's a difficult time, but there is some, certainly, as Vince indicated, a relief, you know, and it's difficult. Good to see the members of the family that I hadn't seen in a while.
Okay. I'm going to recognize Rotary Yours recorder Ruth Lundeen today. She's going to be sending our newsletter out, but she's going to make a special announcement right now about the watershed cleanup project.
Thank you very much, Joni. I'm going to try and share my screen. Here it is. Do you see it now?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, very good. Just a reminder and a request for people to get serious about our Rotary Day of supporting the Chautauqua-Conowongo watershed cleanup. If you remember, the environment has become the 7th focus for Rotary, so it's very significant. And also, thanks to the assistance of Dan Stone, we're also being a part of the hands-on Jamestown neighborhoods, which they're having a cleanup that day, and he's going to help us with some of the materials. So like the trash bags so it's May 22nd. We'll be doing it from 8:30 to 10:30 at the Riverwalk Bike Path. And that's, if those of you who know the Ben Weitzman, the scrapyard on 8th Street, there's now a parking lot, paved parking lot right there, right next door. And that's where we will start. The AM Club is also going to help. So it really is a Rotary Day. And they may start up off of Fluvanna at the Clifton entrance. So asking people to wear gloves, wear sturdy shoes. And if you have those 5-gallon painter's buckets, we'd rather use that for recyclables rather than plastic bags, because part of this whole point is trying to reduce our use of plastic since it is becoming so pervasive in our environment. So that's the official get together. And of course, we'll all stay spaced apart along that path. But you can also, and we ask anyone who feels better doing a cleanup anywhere else, if you have a favorite walking place or a favorite overlook of Chautauqua Lake, or even your own yard, if you do a cleanup, we ask you Rotary Day that day, and let me know so we can report the number of people participating. So I would ask if anyone already has it on their calendar, which I hope some of you do, if you would put it in the chat that you are expecting to be there, so I can begin to get Doug and Lynn and I can begin to get an idea of how many people to expect and how the logistics need to be. For
And
those
it's under Paul, not Ruth.
oh yeah,
Paul, not Ruth.
okay, right. That's okay. The email is, oh, that's right. I'm sorry. Yes, you need to look under Paul Hedberg to send me a chat. Sorry about that. So if some of you don't know where it is, so here's our beautiful Chautauqua River, and down here is the park, the boat landing, and this is across the street. So this is 8th Street. I'm hoping you all can see my big yellow arrow. This is 8th Street, and this is the track that we will be. It's a beautiful new paved Riverwalk bike path. And up here, this end of it, this is Clifton Road off of Fluvanna. So that's where we will be doing the cleanup. And so I hope that eliminates any questions that people might have. And does anybody have?
How do we sign up, Ruth?
Well, if you either, if you do it in the chat or email me you can email me using the email from our Rotary Connections. And then anyone who's interested, then I'll send you the link so you can actually also be officially registered with the Chautauqua Conewango cleanup.
Oh, wonderful.
Okay. So any questions on that? I'll stop sharing.
No, I guess we can move on. Thank you so much for making this happen. Any other announcements?
I'll make an announcement for literacy. Hopefully folks got the link from Chris Anderson to be able to listen to and see our first Rotary Radio Classic. And this week we're going to be starting on 2 more productions. So the Literacy Committee, about the next 6 weeks on Wednesday evenings, we'll be working on those along with Marion, who handles our editing. So we're excited about that, and we're looking forward to receive some feedback from folks. So
thank you. So if you've watched it or listened to it, send Diana your thoughts, and if you haven't, it's probably still in your email somewhere. Look it up. The district is holding its virtual interactive training days this Saturday in the morning from 8:30 to noon. Our own Sherry has been involved in it, so please consider tuning in. You have to register. I'm sure you've gotten a number of emails about it, and you'll probably get more this week. So there's still time to sign up, she says. So learn about the workings of Rotary and the local clubs, and maybe we can pick up some good ideas. She's put in the chat how to register right there. And there's a link to the Literacy Committee play as well, right on YouTube. Any other announcements before I get my last one?
Tony, everybody should have gotten an email last week about the golf tournament, August 30th. Registrations and sponsors are needed.
Okay. All right, we really need to do that, folks, because fundraising for the past year and a half has been very low. So we really need this golf tournament in August to be successful if we're going to keep helping our community the way we want to. Next Friday, the 21st, will be the Board of Directors monthly meeting, and following that at 11 o'clock will be a Vision Committee meeting. So put those on your calendar. How about some happy bucks? Who's happy?
Joni, Randy?
Yeah.
I like to put in a $5 for our speaker today. You know, a lot of you don't realize the tremendous assets we have in this community, but Dan Stone is one of those behind the scenes who is just doing such a fantastic job. He has for many years. When I heard he got his promotion, I said, that's right, the right thing for the city to do. I just can't say enough for Dan and the wonderful job he's done to take care of our tree population.
I agree. Wonderful. Another happy buck. Come on. So it was cold. So what? What else is going on?
Joni?
Yeah.
Yeah, we're expecting number 10 grandchild.
Really?
Yeah, Jonathan and Katie
Well,
are due in December.
Well, good for you.
Yeah, pretty exciting.
Way to keep track of all the names yet.
Yeah, well, they're pretty normal names, so it's not too bad.
Oh, good.
How do they divvy up?
Their first child broke it was a tie, 4 girls, 4 boys, and their first child was a son. And now it's 5 boys, 4 girls, ranging in age from 1 to 13.
Can you name them?
Oh, easily. Katie, Tommy, Isaac, Ryan, Andrew, Joanna, Mary Kate, Grace, and William.
Yeah.
Very good.
You used to have them do this for 25 kids. Any other, congratulations. I'm sure
Thank
you've worked
you.
hard there. Any other happy bucks? All right, well, we'll move on to our program. Please welcome Program Committee Member Tori Ergang, who will introduce our speaker.
Okay,
And please mute.
okay. Yes, please mute except for Tori, and then you're going to want to mute me by the end because I could say a lot of wonderful things about Dan, but I've chosen to introduce him with a poem. And I am no poet, so just remember that. But Dan Stone, for those of you that have ever gone to a tree planting, you know that he writes poetry each time he plants a tree. So I figure I should probably try to live up to Dan's standard. Randy's laughing, so we'll see how well I do. We all know that Dan loves the trees and playing in the dirt on his hands and his knees. He is a Jamestown resident for almost always, except when he was at Paul Smith's during his college days. Dan is a husband and father to a daughter and son. His heart and dedication they have certainly won. Dan is happiest when watching the Buffalo Bills team with family and friends who join him in his Super Bowl dream. Before we listen, there is one thing that I love to hear Dan say. The best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago, but the next best time is today. With that, I will turn it over to Dan Stone.
That was awesome, Tori. Fantastic. Great. Now I know who to pull out of the crowd to help me when I get stuck at Arbor Day. So, thank you. Thank you for inviting me today and allowing me to come and speak to your club. It's great to see all of you. I know scrolling through, I know most of you. Either in passing or in some pretty in-depth conversations and projects we've had over the years together. So I really appreciate you reaching out to me and allowing me to do this. Before I get started in talking about the city's tree program, Ruth was talking about the hands-on cleanup that's going to be happening on the 22nd. I also may have an opportunity for somebody to plant some flowers along that bike trail on that day. So maybe Ruth, give me a call and we can talk about that. Unfortunately, it won't be any native flowers. We're looking at geraniums and marigolds and things that deer won't eat on the Clifton end of the property. But the bike trail is a great place. I know I've seen some of you down there. 1.5 mile path that we finished probably about 3 years ago now. And it's awesome. I'm down there probably 3-4 times a week with either my boy on our bikes or with my dog, usually first thing in the morning. So it's a great place to be. Just like the city of Jamestown. As Tori said, I've been here most of my life. I went away to college and then went to South Florida for a little while. Started our family and I'm back here in the Great White North. Go figure, I left the Adirondacks to do tree work in Florida thinking we'd do it year round. And here I am 18 years later back in Jamestown doing all of our tree work in the winter. So still adapting, getting used to it, but glad we moved back. What a great place. It's been fantastic for me and my family, my kids, everything. So yes, so then I got hired about 16 years ago by the city to become a tree trimmer for the city of Jamestown. Was a tree trimmer for about 3 years, and Doug Hoisington, my predecessor, retired, and I had the opportunity to oversee the tree program and become the city arborist. So I've been a certified arborist for the last 20 years now with the International Society of Arboriculture, and practicing it for the city for 13, 14 years. So then John Williams, parks manager, retired just a few months ago in February, and the opportunity again came up for me to move up the ladder, so to speak. And I decided to take the parks manager job and still hold on to the tree end of things. As most of you know, hear me talk or listen to my rhymes, trees are my passion. So it's something I really enjoy. And probably the best part of it, I think, is planting trees, so we plant probably about 300 trees every year in the city of Jamestown. Unfortunately, on the other side of that coin, we also cut down about 300 trees in the city of Jamestown every year. So we're pretty well balanced out. I'm hoping we're getting to the tipping point where we're going to be planting more than what we're removing. That's always the goal. So we've been able to do a lot of work in the last 40 years. I'm proud to announce that this year marks 40 years that the city of Jamestown has been named a Tree City USA by the Arbor Day Foundation. Second longest tenured in the state. Poughkeepsie's got us by 1 year. So if anybody knows anybody in Poughkeepsie that's doing the paperwork for Tree City USA, take them on vacation in December, and maybe we can jump in front of them. So with the Tree City USA program, we earn an award for the previous year's work. So we send in all of our numbers of what we've done that year: trim trees, remove trees, grind stumps, and plant trees. And that gets looked at to determine our Tree City USA status, because now we've actually come up to a different status than just a normal Tree City USA. And I'll start with the program itself. There's 4 core standards that you must meet to be a Tree City USA. You must have a tree board or a committee, which we have our Parks and Recreation Commission, which serves as that committee for us. We have a tree care ordinance. Our ordinance and inventory were first done in 1986 with the help of a lot of great people. Bob Sundell, Randy Sweeney, Doug Hoisington, all kinds of great people that got together back in the 80s and saw this as a new program and a way for us to advance and open up grant opportunities for us. And they jumped right on board and took care of that. The third standard is that we must have an urban forestry or a community forestry program that spends at least $2 per capita in budget. I try to at least get that in our tree planting fund. But we have 4 hired on staff, 4 line clearance arborists, so the guys can trim the trees around the power lines and all the other trees. So we easily reach that one. And then our 4th, which is my favorite, is to have an Arbor Day proclamation and celebration. So we do that every year as a city one. Honestly, I try to sneak in between 15, 16 of them. With planting with the schools and different organizations and groups. So it's been great. So the last 16 years, we've been partnered with Randy and Tori at the Community Foundation with tree planting projects. Thanks to their help and generosity, we've moved beyond being just a Tree City USA, and 2 years ago earned the designation of a Sterling Tree City USA. We've done that by going above and beyond the 4 standards that I just mentioned on an annual basis. And you need to do that consecutively for 10 years to earn the Sterling status. So I was proud 2 years ago that we were able to get that accomplished and still carry that on. We earned another growth award this year. We've been able with the Community Foundation to impact certain neighborhoods, certain schools, certain entranceways into the city, North Main Street, McDaniel Avenue, and just about every school. And then we hit the neighborhoods surrounding the schools. So it's been a great partnership to have over the years, and actually increases our tree planting by a third, almost a half at times, depending on cost of trees. So we plant a lot of trees. Right now we're up to 331 different varieties of trees in the city of Jamestown. This spring was beautiful. There's still some crab apples and some flowering cherries that still have their flowers on them, but I have an autumn flowering cherry in the terrace in my yard. And it's really a pretty cool tree because it flowers, like it says, in the fall along with the spring. So last fall was the first year it really boomed right out for me. Looked great. Right about Thanksgiving, the weather was still pretty decent and it was loaded with pink flowers. It was pretty cool. Now come this spring, unbelievable. You couldn't even tell there were branches on this thing with the amount of pink flowers that were everywhere. They turned to white after they come out for a couple of days as pink. So then it looked like before we got the actual snow that I was going to have to go out and shovel all the flowers off of my yard because there were so many flowers on it. And driving around town and seeing things, it's just been a really great year for the trees so far. So we hope that continues on. Probably the biggest question, and we were just over at Dave's house planting a couple trees actually in the snow for Earth Day. So that was fun. We were able to get out and do some plantings this spring. I think I've got about 200 trees left up in our tree farm that we're hoping to get out as things go on and we start to get summer help kids in to help us cut grass, and I can have the other guys start working on some tree plantings. This year, I'm hoping to have our city Arbor Day celebration on the 28th of the month. It'll be the last Friday. Traditionally, Arbor Day is celebrated the last Friday in April in New York State. Usually that last Friday in April, it's still pretty cold and it's been known to snow too. So that's why I decided the city would expand ours a little bit deeper into hopefully some warmer and nicer weather. And that's why we traditionally, the last 10, 12 years, been doing ours in May. So I'm looking at doing ours on the 28th up in Allen Park, looking to replace a line of spruce trees that had got infected with insects and disease right by the baseball field. And I'd like to extend an invitation to all of you to come up and join us. I'm hoping to plant about 8 to 10 trees that day. We received a grant also last year from the New York State Urban Forestry Council, which is a volunteer group that helps and works alongside the DEC. And they were able to give us a grant for 4 trees to go in that project. And I figure we got to put more than 4. So we'll look at between 8 and 10. So probably the biggest question on everybody's mind or concern is the West 3rd Street oak trees. So I'll open all this up to questions here in a little bit. As you've known, driving through the west side of town and the entrance of the city, we unfortunately had to remove 43 of the remaining red and pin oaks that used to line the street of West 3rd Street. So what we've been able to do since then is we kept any wood that was good, that was 6 inches and larger in diameter. So unfortunately, it wasn't all of the trees, but it was still a mountain of wood. So we have that set aside here in the city and opened it up for the first time last month for residents and people to come in and get some. We had 35 people show up the first time, and I've got a list of probably 70 more. Anything from people wanting to use the older rotten wood to grow mushrooms out of, to people wanting to make bar tops for the restaurant downtown. So it's been quite an interesting learning process through the whole thing for me. And we're hoping to be able to get some of it milled off that we can use again here at the city and in our park systems and things like that. I'm really being selfish with it. I'd love to have a live edge conference table in our office over here. So that's, and at City Hall as well. Looking at having some things made to be on display at the Fenton Mansion. Having some wood carvers do some work and some local artists doing some renditions and photographs of the 3rd Street canopy as well. So I could just keep rambling on forever about trees, but I'm sure or hope that some of you have questions that I can answer and help you with. I see Walt wants to know why the West 3rd Street oaks had to be removed. So back on November 6th, we had a pretty nasty storm come through the area. We had lost 60 trees here in the city of Jamestown that I was aware of. And what I mean by that are even private trees that were in the road or on top of houses or in areas we could help people out with. And then there was more in backyards and things like that. But at that time, we had lost the 3rd red oak in the last 4 years in the same fashion. Back in the mid 80s, the state came in and redid the whole curb line on West 3rd Street, both on the north and south sides. So 4 years ago, it was a nice July day. I remember it pretty well because I went over to my dad's to help him fix his lawnmower. So I had shorts and my flip-flops on at the time. And I got a call from my boss, Jeff Lehman, and he said, Dan, one of the oak trees fell down. And I said, there's no way, he's messing with me. It's a beautiful day. And sure enough, I walked up the street from my dad's house and I look, and on the corner of Lakin and 3rd, we had lost our first oak tree. So what had happened, and it was a calm day. It had been windy the weeks leading up to it, but it was fully leafed out. Big tree, 80 feet tall with probably about a 60 to 80 foot spread on it. It just slowly fell over, and luckily nobody was there. It was about 4:30 in the afternoon and laid right in the intersection of Lakin and West 3rd Street. So I noticed at that time how the roots had gone. Like I said, the tree was fully leafed out, so it looked good. plenty of acorns on the ground, no real major defects that I noticed. Other than that, none of the roots were left along the curb line of that tree. So we ended up looking at a couple other ones, starting to look at them a little bit closer, doing removals here and there where we saw needed and what was warranted. I guess I could back up even farther. 8 years before that, we had started seeing some dieback that really didn't go on with what had been happening for the previous 20 years in those trees. So it was bigger wood, it was happening at a faster rate. And over by the funeral home, we looked at removing a couple trees. So as my guys are cutting the trees down, they're on a rope and they're laying them into the ground. So they're not just slamming to the ground and they're just disintegrating, not even breaking apart, really disintegrating right into the blacktop. At that point, I got really nervous, figuring it was a disease called oak wilt, possibly, or something was going on. We found a couple real big caterpillars up in the tops of the trees. So I called in the DEC and actually happened to have two of the best plant pathologists in the state come by, and we went and examined all the trees. So they told me at the time it wasn't the disease oak wilt, but we found 4 or 5 different funguses and a couple bugs, and the bugs are coming in because of the dead wood, okay, because of the dying material. And the trees are dying because of their location, their age, the amount of abuse they've been through. It was tough living up there on West 3rd Street for over 100 years. So we at that point picked out a few more to remove and a few to start trimming a little bit harder. We also at that time, again, thanks to a grant from the Community Foundation, were able to treat, we had 61 of them at that time. So we were able to treat 48 of those trees. We did insecticide, we did fungicide, some got both, some just got one or the other, and then all of them got a fertilizer as well. So then we go back to the one that fell down 4 years ago. So now the year before, last year, 2019, it was again a winter day, not real windy, but not a nice December day. And I'm actually in Buffalo at the doctor's, and I get a call from the sheriff's department that again, one of our oak trees had failed. 2 houses down from the cemetery on the south side of the street this time, a big oak tree came down and laid right on top of the people's houses this time. Luckily, the lady who resides there was not home. We were able to get over, get the tree lifted off her house and get it cut up, but it looked really similar to the one that had fell 2 years prior. So now I'm looking at the trees again and trying to decide what's the best measures to take, and looking harder at the defects of the trees and some of the rot. And I'm thinking too, it's not the trees that are dying that are falling apart. It's not the ones that are hollow that are falling down on houses. It's actually the trees that are healthier. The ones that have a bigger leaf mass, that have a heavier wood to them, are the ones that are starting to fail. So we went through and I had picked out 6 trees to remove that winter. And we ended up actually taking 9 trees that year. By the time we got into trimming, finding certain cracks in the trees, other structural defects, we removed 9 trees. So now we go back to November 2020, and we have that storm, and now the 3rd tree comes over and is laying on a house again. It was probably one of the more protected trees in the stretch from where the driveway went to Stewart Avenue. We had 6 trees in that stretch. So they figure the root systems are all intertwined pretty good. It should give it a little bit more stability. But when that one came over, now I felt like I was Bill Murray in the movie Groundhog's Day. I kept seeing the same thing over and over and over now. It was like that first tree I had seen 4 years prior. The root system was just not there along that curb line. Due to removals we had made the previous year or in previous years leading up to that, now we're also changing all the climate up there on West 3rd Street as well. Okay. I removed 6 trees on the south side of the street. Well, those 6 trees protected a lot of the wind that the trees on the north side didn't have to defend themselves against. So they weren't focusing their energy on having anchoring roots on that side because they were always protected in that way. So now at that point, I think 3 times was enough. I didn't want to see a 4th tree come down in the same situation. I couldn't guarantee that those trees would stay up any longer. We were looking at removing another 6 trees prior to that anyways. And my thoughts are when we went back and trimmed, we probably would have took 8 or 9 instead of the original 6. So the street was starting to decline. The south side of the street, for all of its life until 3 years ago, had a big 10-inch gas line right underneath that root system as well. So that also played into the decline of the tree as the aging of the gas line came along. And if any of you had walked 3rd Street in the last 5 years, every once in a while you'd get that smell of gas. With a 120-year-old gas line underneath 100-year-old oak trees, there were issues that would arise every once in a while. So the decline was already starting to happen and happening at a faster pace the last 8 years when I first noticed it when we did the treatment of the trees. One of my first assignments of being a tree trimmer for the city of Jamestown was probably one of the scariest tree jobs I was really ever involved with. And it wasn't just because of the size of the trees or the location of where they were at. I've been doing tree work now for about 35 years. So I've had my fair share of climbing big trees and cutting around obstacles and things like that. But when Doug sent me up to trim the oak trees my second week at the city of Jamestown, I was so scared knowing what those oak trees meant to not only the city of Jamestown, but anybody in our area. I grew up on the west side of town, walked underneath those trees going to Fairmont Elementary School. And then I lived in Salamanca my high school years and would come back and we'd play games against Southwestern or Panama and drive underneath the canopy of those trees. And it's always been a picturesque, beautiful place that everybody really enjoyed. So making the decision to finally cut those down, first, that was the scariest and hardest job I was ever given, especially 2 weeks into a new job, a new position. But it was also the hardest decision I've ever had to make, was the final decision to remove the rest of those trees on West 3rd Street. I told my guys when they dropped the last 2 trees, I said, you know, this was tough. It was hard. And by no means am I happy that we had to do this, but I'm glad the job is done. I don't have to worry at least about West 3rd Street with people walking their dogs or driving their kids to Lincoln School or Farm Fresh to get a donut. The decline was happening. And I don't think the trees would have lasted another 10 years anyways, and under any circumstance. If you had noticed the last few years, the oak trees tend to still have their leaves on them when you're raking your yard in the spring, right? If you've got an oak tree in your yard or your neighborhood, they're still on there. So these ones weren't getting there anymore. The fall color wasn't there anymore. So right there was showing you the great decline we were going into. I think there was only a half a dozen trees that still had leaves on them when we started cutting in December. So it was a matter of time, unfortunately. And it was a great street. And I'm hoping once again, we can make it a nice iconic street as an entranceway into the city.
Dan, thank you so much for that answer. Short question. I didn't know there would be so much to it, but thank you. I don't think most of us think about what's underground when we're looking at the beautiful part of the tree above ground. So on the positive side, I personally want to thank you on behalf of me and my wife Nancy for all the help you and Doug have given us with our redbud trees, the ones we have in the terrace in front of our house. And now I think we've got something like 21 of them on our property, but in the spring they are absolutely spectacular. I know this is the northern limit of their climate, but if there's ever a good place to plant those, I know people appreciate them as much as the plum you're talking about.
Yeah, I love red buds, and I think you guys have a little bit of the South up there with you, Walt, because Nancy's really turned that into a red bud haven up on your street. So that's great. They are a beautiful tree.
Thank you.
Dan, Steve Sandberg has a question. He wants to know, how do you plan to replace those trees on, oh wait, that's from Becky. Same thing. What's the plan and schedule for replanting West 3rd Street?
There's going to be hopefully a lot of work involved going on West 3rd Street tree-wise. Again, I'm looking to partner with the Community Foundation because I'd like to try some new things up there, and infrastructure-wise. I'd like to be able to put in some root barrier systems that we haven't used before, so that maybe we can avoid sidewalk issues, issues with utility lines underground, issues with the curbing, and be able to control more where those roots grow. Now, West 3rd Street, at one time, there was 83 oak trees from the bridge to Halleck Street, okay? There was 63 just in the stretch from Hall to Halleck. So we won't plant that many trees back. If any of you have tried to turn from a side street on the West 3rd Street, you almost had to creep all the way out. And it was kind of nice when they put the bike lane in because it gave you a little bit more security there. But we'll definitely look at planting trees. I'm a fan of big trees. Like I said, I grew up underneath those oak trees. I grew up working in Allegheny State Park. Our area is big trees. So I'm looking at things like American variety elms, tulip trees, some oaks, maple trees, maybe a ginkgo tree or two. So I haven't finalized anything yet. I'm open to any suggestions, but I'm looking at a variety. That was also part of our problem, is when those trees started getting sick, their root systems were intertwined. And because they were the same trees, then they share that sickness between them as well. So, you know, we tried to avoid a monoculture as best as possible, and we're looking to have it once again, a nice, maybe different coloring and some flowering trees up there as well. So there's a lot in the talks in the works right now. I'm not going to rush to a decision just to plant trees. So it'll take some time. Usually when we do a removal, we end up replacing that tree the following fall, hoping we can go under those guidelines, and we'll see how it goes.
Well, that's wonderful. Thank you very much. We appreciate your time. By the way, have you written this all down, that whole timeline that you told us? Is that written down somewhere?
Right up here.
Okay. No, Goodling is on the meeting. I know that. I will send Noah a copy of this recording, and he can write it all down so you don't have to go through it again. Okay? So he can keep it. But this is going to be a question, I can guarantee you, given a little of my experience, is going to come up years from now.
Yes. Yes.
And no one's going to, from your mouth, what the answer is. And now we do. That's wonderful. And we know how hard this was on you. Any of us who know you personally know that. So thank you. Well, thank you for speaking to us. One of Rotary's major international programs, you know, is to eradicate polio in the world. And we're down to just 2 countries where it exists. So in honor and thanks for your presentation to our club today, we're making a donation in your name to the Polio Plus Foundation Fund to vaccinate 4 children. And they will never experience polio.
Nice. Thank you. Thank you.
Noah says, by the way, he's going to do it. He just told me that. So next week, we will hear, I didn't write it down. I didn't write it down. Who is it? Who's next week? Tell me, Tori.
Arthur Pearson from the Robert
how
Corey
did I forget
Peterson
that? Arthur Pearson, the new guy over at RTPI, will be here. And I can't wait to hear what he's got to say. It'll be great. So remember, Rotary opens opportunities. And one of the opportunities you have is to go to the virtual district conference on Saturday. The other opportunity you have is to send Ruth a little note that says, I'm going to be there on the 22nd, and bring your bucket. So remember, what other opportunities are you going to see in your community to help make it better? Thank you, everybody, and we're adjourned.
Joni, I'd just like to say thank you to all of you for letting me come and speak today. And as Tori started my talk with a rhyme, if you don't mind, I'd like to end with a quick one as well.
Sure.
So for about the last 10 years, when it comes to our Arbor Day celebration time, I tend to spit out a little tree planting rhyme. As a thank you for having me here today, I figured I'd end our talk in a similar way. So thanks for allowing me to speak to your club and for listening to me ramble about trees, one of my true loves. I always tell everyone that I have the best job in the city. I get to plant the trees that makes our parks and streets pretty. Yeah, I actually get paid to play in the dirt, and for free, they even give me these nice bright shirts. I also want to say a special thanks to all of you, and this is for the many different works that all of you do. You are what makes our home a great community. Your work goes far beyond just charity. I've seen you out on the roadways picking up trash. All of these great things you do without ever having to be asked. So next time when you're out picking up garbage in the morning fog, I ask that you remember the city of Jamestown's motto: a city without trees isn't fit for a dog. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye, everybody.
Thanks.